All right, we are going to continue with our talk on emotions. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you all about was a concept called higher level response. Okay, higher level response, and that is something that we use in working with emotions. And really, the basic definition of a higher level response is that a client is talking to you, and maybe they say they feel sad or angry, and you're looking to heighten the response or heighten the intensity of that emotion in what they're explaining to you. Or you're looking to just give them an emotion to kind of capture their experience. And this is one of the core principles of EFT, which is emotions focused therapy. If y'all read my bio, EFT is one of the theories that I subscribe to. I mean, I'm very eclectic in my approach, but I use EFT a lot. And when I work with couples, EFT is one of two theories that I use exclusively with couples. It is the most proven, effective method in working with couples and also families as well. We'll get to that at some other point. But EFT focuses on the emotions, recognizing that our emotions definitely drive the way that we act, the way we behave with others, how we react and respond in different situations. So EFT really kind of piggybacks off of that and searches for the deeper meaning underneath interactions, recognizing that it's driven by emotions. And so when we look for that higher level response, say somebody's explaining a story to you, which would be kind of this upper level right here, a higher level response in going deeper would be as a therapist to say, yeah, you know what, it really sounds like you're feeling this, and maybe giving them a word or a language or vocabulary. It kind of sounds like you're feeling really scared. I'd be really scared if I was in that situation. So you're offering them that. You're validating them, but what you're also doing is expanding kind of their horizon of their experience of that situation. When you offer that higher level response, they're able to agree with you or disagree with you, or they're able to say, yeah, it was that, but it was really more this instead. And so what we're doing is we're calling clients kind of deeper into themselves to really be talking about what is it exactly that's going on and that's driving you. Okay, so that's kind of what that higher level response is. Now, another part of that is secondary emotions. And I think that this is probably a familiar concept to most of you, because I'm sure a lot of you have heard the language that anger is a secondary emotion. And I would argue that anger is both a secondary emotion and a primary emotion, depending on how it's felt, where it's felt, kind of the situation around it. So a secondary emotion would be an emotion that you say you feel or that you kind of act upon that is actually something else. So using Chip Dodd's stuff, the anger and the depression, acting out in anger when really it's feeling depressed. Feeling like, nothing's going right, I can't do anything, those sorts of things. So that's where anger would be a secondary emotion. A primary emotion then would be when you truly feel angry, according to Dr. Dodd's stuff, about something that's kind of being bumped up against. So again, maybe an easier way to explain this would be most of you are parents, or many of you have at least had experience with children. And of course, as a parent or as a caregiver, what's one of the first lessons you teach your kid is don't run out into the middle of the street, okay? Because of course there's cars and there could be accidents and you could get hit and all those sorts of things. So let's say one day you're playing outside with little Johnny and he beelines for the street, okay? And your first reaction is, Johnny, don't go into the street. And it really sounds like you're angry with him, and you come over to him. What were you thinking? I've told you not to go into the street. Now, little Johnny might perceive that as, Daddy or Mommy's angry with me because I can hear it in their voice. But if you take a step back from that situation, is it that the parent is actually angry with their child, or is it that they are terrified and fearful that something could have happened to their child? And so even though it comes out in anger, that's a secondary response to the fact that they are deeply afraid of what would happen if little Johnny had run out into the street and a car had been coming. What could have happened? So you see that secondary and primary anger are very different. Even though it was expressed as anger initially, it was actually because it was the fear was driving it. Again, I used this example before. Jesus' anger in the temple when he was flipping over tables with the money changers. That's an example of primary anger. So Jesus viewed the temple as sacred and holy and special and important. And here were these people who were making a mockery out of it. They didn't care that it was set up like a bank that was a dishonestly run bank. They were just trying to get their money. That went directly against a value and something that was important to Jesus and the purpose of the temple in the first place. And so his anger came out righteously or holy because he was going, this is not the intended purpose, and I'm angry for that. There wasn't any other emotion underneath that. It was anger. So again, we go primary and secondary anger. And I think that's just really important for you to understand those concepts. Of course, it doesn't have to be just anger. It can be a secondary or primary emotion of any kind. Okay. So the last note that I want to leave on then for this lecture before we move into the resources then is just really kind of that personalized part in being in check with your own emotions. And for any of you who are from the Northern Stoic cultures, or maybe the South Bible Belt, where everything is very, smiley and just sweet and those sorts of things. Emotions are not something that we talk about a lot. Emotions are not something that we necessarily teach our kids how to deal with. Emotions are not something that our churches necessarily give us permission to move into or help us work through. I would say the overarching theme to emotions is quick, just get over them. Look forward. God's going to give you something better. And get out of that emotion as fast as possible. And so my encouragement really is the opposite of that, is to really be checking yourself. Where are you at? What are the emotions you're experiencing and feeling? Whether it's in the room with a client or in your own home or personally, start to notice what's going on in you. When somebody walks into the room and kind of violates your personal space, what's your reaction to that? And would you give yourself permission to just let that emotion sit there and understand it and process it rather than try to squelch it? And I know, of course, as therapists, the little cliche term that we always get is, how does that make you feel? And I think a lot of people think that as a therapist, that's what we do. We just sit in our offices and ask clients, how does that make you feel? And I used to swear up and down I would never, ever say that term. And though I don't know that I say it exactly like that, how does that make you feel? That movement into emotion and feeling and the language around that, tell me more about that. What did it feel like when that happened? Is something that I daily am incorporating into both my personal and professional life. So in that, I would invite you to this place with emotions personally of starting to be curious within yourself when you notice some sort of an emotional reaction come up. I want you to notice when that emotion comes up, how do you feel back towards yourself? And if it's anything other than curiosity or compassion, I would invite you into a place of exploring that. Think about, why do I feel so much anger that I'm sad in this moment right now? Why don't I just try to get rid of that guilt or that shame? What is that telling me? Is there something more that I could be missing here? And I would just love to invite you into that place of curiosity and compassion about what you are actually experiencing. That's not something that our parents teach us. It's not something that our churches teach us. It's a very therapeutic concept maybe, but one that I would actually think is pretty biblical. Jesus did it. He never tried to hide his emotions. He understood very much that experiencing emotions and feelings were a part of his humanity and part of what made him whole. And so I would just love for you to spend some time in that place of exploration, whether it's today or tomorrow or this week or this year, but just letting yourself be in that and sit in that and process through that and start to notice just kind of the change that that makes in you. And I'm sure that we'll come back to this topic many times throughout the rest of the class because, as you can tell, you can probably tell, I'm pretty passionate about this. And I think this is just because it's been a lesson that I have learned over and over and over and kind of sunk into a little bit more deeply. So, so that's my little spiel about emotions. We are going to end it for this video, and then we'll move into our last video. It is full of resources, some kind of fun therapeutic techniques that I use, as well as some fun personal resources as well. So we'll see you next time.